if this is the state of play right now, and if Democrats actually think that they can stand up to to what appears to be this movement towards authoritarianism in the United States, then so be it.
Welcome to the Practivist Pod, the practice of activism made practical.
Today we talk about Trump's D.C. invasion / distraction and Trump's new MAGA Bureau of Labor statistics pick, a job that is way more important than it sounds.
Then we talk all things redistricting with the professor of politics at Pomona College and California's redistricting commissioner, Dr. Sara Sadhwani. I'm Jess Linktree.
I'm Steve Pearson.
Stay strong. It won't be long. Yeah, yeah. We will build a better world.
Jess, you're back. You're back in familiar backgrounds. You made it through immigration. You didn't get stuck in Canada, which you might not be happy about. You know, it sounds
I know.
like.
Yeah, I know. I was hoping they would say, go back to the beach and just stay there until we call you. Customs was a non thing. And it's
That's
actually
an
interesting. Yeah, it's good to hear because I've had all kinds of people say, just really terrified to travel over the customs thing. And I have to say, especially, I will say if you're a white person and a citizen, I think that we don't need to contribute to the drama around this area because they're really not going after people like us. I think they are going after green card holders. Sometimes they are going after people of color. I think that typically most people I know who are coming through are just getting popped right through. There was nothing different about customs. There was no. So I just say that not to downplay that there's really crazy shit happening, but just to let people know that it's not always happening, and it's probably not mostly happening to white people and citizens. So,
yeah, I'm glad to hear it, and we should travel and do the things that we have as rights as citizens to do.
Yes.
Whether or not they are pushing back on that. So, glad to have you home. Just in time for, more exciting times that we're living in. And before we get into all of it, I always forget this. Just remind everyone we are on Substack, and it really helps us a lot if you join us there and you get an ad-free version of the show as well. So we'd be grateful for your support there. And we do have a call-in number because we want to hear what you're doing and, what protest you're at, what it feels like to volunteer. Help us inspire other people to do the great work that you're doing. That number is 818-824-4286. So, I don't know any other way to put it. I guess technically it is not, but I wish the news would report what's happening in DC now as what it really is martial law, at least for the next 30 days while he's, used this provision to federalize the DC police and, once again, bring in National Guard. In another unprecedented move. We get lots of those these days, but we are in a full-on authoritarian state right now. And, this is a, massive distraction. It is a test case to see, how he can push the boundaries of his wannabe authoritarianism, given the constructs of our Constitution, what kind of legal pushback he'll get, what kind of Republican pushback he might get. All of that is true. And it's definitely a distraction from his, obvious presence in the Epstein files and his terrible, job numbers, which we're going to get into, how he's, down in the polls in every metric, in huge ways. But it's also very, very serious. So, you've been looking at this a lot and you have a lot of great context also from your experience here in Los Angeles, what went down with the National Guard Marines being here. So, how are you feeling about what's happening right now?
Well, yeah, I made a video sort of talking to the people of DC because I think, first of all, if you're not in a city where this has happened, you don't understand how unbelievably violating it feels. And also how crazy making it feels because suddenly your city is being portrayed as this like hellscape. And I know I spent the entire time when this was happening in LA just going around making videos showing people like, hello, this is the reality. So it's maddening. It feels very violating. And then of course there's this sense of just the colossal waste. And I just saw some video. They've really got like quite a lot of guys walking around in their uniforms. It is so wasteful. Like, why are the same people who are so upset about waste, fraud, and abuse not upset about the fact that these guys are being paid to do nothing? And you've been to DC. Obviously, you've got family there. I've been to DC. People who live in DC are like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, this is a lovely city. Every city has some crime, but as everybody
not only
has
is it
pointed
a
out,
lovely city, I don't want to interrupt. I want you to go right back. But not only is it a lovely city, but it is so much safer and lovelier than it was when I was growing up there in the 80s. You know, so I left in '89, and it's incredible. Like, and in some cases, like the gentrification and stuff is, you know, questionable. You know, the affordability, all of those issues. But that's, you know, that's what's happened to the city. It's not, you know, gotten, you know, all of what Trump describes it to be. It's a wonderful city. So anyway, please carry on.
One too many Whole Foods, if anything, right? Yeah, no, it is.
The Whole Foods is literally where I used to buy weed as a teenager. Okay,
there you
so
go.
I'm just putting that out there.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's a very frustrating and a very racist thing. And, you know, again, when you look at sort of the facts, which I know most people on the right just aren't apparently that interested in, but like 30-year low in their crime rate. You know, the Trump administration actually cut a bunch of federal law enforcement funding from DC just recently. So like, if they cared about crime, why did they do that? And of course, like, one of the biggest crimes that's taken place there in recent history, if ever, was January 6th.
That's right.
When Trump would not send in the National Guard. So what happened is this guy who I hate to use this nickname, but Big Balls, this is what they call him. He's a Doge staffer or was. Yeah. There was an attempted carjacking, and this is what set all of this off. But what's beneath it is racism, division, you know, distraction, and yes, authoritarianism. And it's all fucked up. And it's all anybody driving in a pickup truck with a flag hanging off, an American flag hanging off your truck. What the fuck are you doing? Like, get that flag off of your truck or start speaking up. It's so frustrating to me. This is everything we fought a revolution to stop. And here we are again. It's maddening.
The Big Balls carjacking incident was a pretense for doing this, but this wasn't. But that's not.
Totally.
That's not. You know why they did it. This has been the plan. LA was the first.
Totally.
We talked about this a lot. You know, come into a city near you. They found this provision that actually allowed the federal government to federalize the DC police force. In a way that you can't do with other cities because of the home rule, and even Muriel Bowser, the mayor, in the press conference said, "Well, there's not much we can do here. You know, essentially, like we're going to try to work on this together in a way that is not, you know, so disruptive, although it's incredibly disruptive." And then, you know, he has said that, you know, this is coming to other cities. He's, you know, said it clearly that it's coming to other cities. And an important point that I do want to make about this is, you know, DC is the seat of power. It is also the primary seat of our protests. It's where the March on Washington happens. And, you know, I have heard it stated that authoritarian regimes that are able to militarize and take over the police force of the capital actually last a lot longer, you know, because they basically bunker themselves in. And I want to remind people of the June executive order when they called up the Guard in Los Angeles. It said that protests constitute a form of rebellion. And the administration has justified the deployment using a law called Title 10 that allows the president to call up Guard forces during a rebellion or invasion if he is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. So So Trump is trying to squash dissent like every authoritarian ruler, and he's doing it right at the seat of the biggest protests. So our job is very, very clear, and I'll say this again later in the show. September 1st is our next really big nationwide day of protest, the Labor Day protest, workers over billionaires. We have to do exactly what we did in Los Angeles, which is come out in the streets with peaceful, joyful protests to counter these actions, because we actually, the military presence has left Los Angeles. We fought that back with peace, with ridicule, and we can do the same thing. But this is where this is going. This is why he's doing this, among the other reasons to distract.
Yeah, and I think it's very, very important. Well, first of all, I want to push back on that just gently, just to say that whatever they said about, what was not going to be allowed in Los Angeles, we protested daily when, and I know, and you said that. I just want to be really clear, like, please don't stop protesting. Please, wherever you are, like, this is all part of this, like, we do not obey in advance. We did not stop protesting. We were peaceful, but we were out there in huge numbers, and they didn't do shit. These guys don't want to mess with American citizens. Trump wants to, but there's a far leap from that to, are they really? Yes, I think they did. One guy they detained very briefly, but in general, I was there. They stood and stared at their phones. I saw them. They were literally looking so bored, so miserable. And we know, because there was reporting about it, morale was incredibly low. And I will tell you that the same thing is going to happen in DC. I saw the faces of these poor, I don't say poor, but like whatever. These are these FBI sops walking around in the street going, what the fuck are we doing? Like, know they are. And so
they're being pulled off their field offices and real work that they're doing, important work that actually keep us safe.
Real crime enforcement work. Like, they're being pulled off from investigating actual crime, drug trafficking, sex trafficking. All of that stuff is being put to the side for Trump's political agenda. I mean, America, come on, be upset about this and do protest. Peacefully, always. I mean, the thing that was the hugest setback for us in LA was like a couple of people decided to set some cars on fire, and they weaponized that. And it's really frustrating because 99% of people were protesting peacefully, but they'll really fasten on the ones that don't. So yeah, keep it peaceful, but do protest. I mean, look, everyone do what you feel safe doing, but like, do show that this is not okay. I heard that people are banging pans every night at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Do that. Like, do whatever.
Thanks for making that clear. I didn't mean to make it sound like I didn't think people should do that. I'm definitely saying do it. That's how we fight back.
Yeah, that's definitely. I hate that shit. I hate them, it just putting fear in people's veins. It just upsets me.
Yeah.
And it's easy to fall prey. It's like the border crossings. Everyone's so terrified to cross the border that they're not traveling, and they're not even actually really searching most people. Travel, live your lives. Don't obey in advance. I didn't take shit off of my phone. I was like, I turned off Face ID. That was it. I'm like, yes, I am proud to be a dissident. And if that means you're going to detain me for 3 hours, fuck it. Then detain me for 3 hours. I still have free speech in this country. And we got to act like we do until we literally don't, or we definitely won't. And again, use your white privilege if you have it. If you're a white person, like we got to stand up and speak out, because it is not very safe for people of color to do that here right now. It is not safe at all. It is not safe for people with green cards. So those of us who have a little bit more safety to stand on, we got to use it right now. I beg of you. That's okay. I'm done.
Well said. Well said. Perfectly said. And all right, well, let's talk about Trump's pick for Bureau of Labor statistics, who I don't know if you saw this. This actually I saw yesterday, but they actually found, in some of the podcasts that he appeared in, his office behind him. You see, I have some nice artwork behind me. The artwork he has behind him is actually a picture of a Nazi warship.
A Nazi warship.
I don't know why.
And exactly, nobody was surprised. Yeah, no. Why would we be surprised? Like, these guys, these Project 2025 people, they're Nazis, right? Sue me for defamation. I will show you the evidence. Like, yes. So he had a Nazi warship. He's Project 2025 contributor. He's a Heritage Foundation guy. And all of that aside, he's also bad at his job. And this is something that I did a video about this yesterday from across the political spectrum, including someone from American Enterprise, very far right think tank. They're like, he's just not good at his job. He makes obvious and very basic errors. He's highly partisan. He interprets everything through a partisan slant, so he gets things wrong all the time. And this is just catastrophic for us, for our economy, because an economy relies on facts. It relies on actual information about what the economy is doing. So do small business owners. So do big corporations. Without that information, our economy is legitimately fucked. So it's a very scary, bad thing that this guy has been nominated. Also, he looks crazy, but I know we're not supposed to make fun of people for their looks, but like, he's a super weird looking dude and I'm just doing it. Sorry. Sue me.
Yeah, well, that's twice you're bringing that on. But look, this is very serious, and it sounds like a small thing. And of course, Trump has a great history of bringing in all the best people, and he's done it once again. But he's already said that he doesn't want to report monthly on job numbers; that he wants to report quarterly. That simple act is devastating to companies that depend on those numbers. The stock market, the Fed depends on that number to look at interest rates and make decisions there. So yet again, we are in a place where we really have to kind of question everything and look for other sources for our information than our government that we're supposed to trust, especially around budget. Like my older brother worked for the Bush administration, for both Bush administrations, actually. He was at the OMB for Bush Sr. and the Small Business Administration for Bush Jr. And that was at a time when I was like, well, he's a Republican. He worked in the Bush administrations, but, for largely nonpartisan kind of stuff, like implementing stuff that wasn't really political by nature. Now these, Russell Vought runs the OMB, the architect of in 2025. It's couldn't be more partisan and destructive to our country. The work that he is spearheading. So we're in a different place, and what it's going to do is, you articulate. I don't need to say what you said, but it's just going to freeze everyone in their tracks, the same way that these tariffs have. It freezes investment. It freezes new job growth. It freezes anyone from doing anything till they feel like they have a good picture of what the future holds. Because if you're running a business, you're not just going to run willy-nilly into financial decisions. You want to have a good basis for making those decisions. And now it's just all uncertainty. So it's a scary time to be in business.
And I read a thing, NPR did an interview with a couple of economists who worked with the Greek government and the Argentinian government during times when the government either had been lying or they were trying to recover from a lying government. Argentina lied about their inflation numbers for a really long time. Their government was like a Trumpian government. They found a way to mess those up. And then in Greece, it was debt, the national debt. They lied about their debt. And what happens, it doesn't help the economy. Everyone's not like, oh, yay, now I'm going to go out and spend a bunch of money. What people do is, especially with the inflation lying, and it would be the same with the jobs, they just go, I know my government is lying to me, so now I don't trust anything coming out of the government, and now I'm just not going to spend. And what happens also, other countries who are loaning us money, huge amounts of money, especially since the Republicans just added $4 trillion to the deficit, they're going to go, I'm not loaning a country money that's lying. So I'm not loaning. Yeah. And if I do, you're going to pay astronomical interest rates because I know you're cheating. So and then it takes a decade to rebuild that trust. It is catastrophic for our economy if they start lying about our numbers. And it will take such a long time to rebuild the trust between consumers and the government, other governments, other countries. It is so short-sighted, and everything this government does is so short-sighted and literally looks like it is designed to destroy our country and our economy. Why do voters want this? I mean, they mostly don't, but why did they vote for this? I'll never understand it.
Well, yes, we need to keep reminding of that, because the the basis for all of this is misinformation to, the MAGA base, and so, to the extent that they actually believe the numbers and, the propaganda coming out of the Trump regime, our job is to push back on that. Our job is to make them aware of how damaging this is and what the real truth behind the job market is. Now, fortunately, and we've talked about this a lot, whatever he does with the numbers, whatever he does trying to hide the numbers or change them or create different, facts, the cost of things is not going to change. And people are still going to go to the store and not be able to buy the things that they need. They're still going to be looking for jobs when there's no jobs. They're still going to be feeling the impacts of all of that. And, we all know, we learned this very clearly in the last election, to our detriment as Democrats, that facts don't really matter, whether they're real, actual facts or made up numbers by the administration when you're, trying to convince somebody to feel a different way than they feel about things. So.
That's an excellent point. We can say the economy is doing great, and it really can be. And if people are not feeling that vibe, yes, exactly. We know this from the Biden administration, and now we're going to know it from the Trump administration, because people, I think, just go on their experience. We all know that prices are going up. We all know people who are unemployed, right, who have lost their jobs because of many different factors, all of which are Trump related. So, you can't convince me that I don't know people who are losing things right now, because I do. Don't even get me started on the people I know who are losing healthcare. They're losing Social Security benefits they've had for 15 years. I have a friend going through that right now. Guess how? Paperwork. They're paperworking her right off of her disability, which is exactly what Republicans are also going to do with Medicaid and with SNAP. It's unbelievable. It's happening right before our eyes. So, Trump can say whatever he wants. We have our lived experience, and we're going to have to really hold tight to that.
Yeah. Having said all that, let's jump into our reasons for hope. What's your reason for hope, Jess? Always the smoothest segue.
It's a really bumpy transition. What can you do? It's just the reasons for hope. Wait, what's hope? I have to remember what that is. Okay.
But I love what you said about hope. I'll just say, before you tell your specific reason for hope, I saw you coming back from Canada and you put out a video talking about not necessarily feeling hope, but acting as if, and what that hope really is in action. We say this at the end of our show. You say it all the time on your newsletter. But it's really important, because we were feeling the same thing. That video that you put out, I encourage people to check it out, on Jess's socials, was right where we were too. And, Melinda came in, my wife, and was feeling really despondent. And, it's okay to feel despondent. It's our actions. It's we act in the face of hope. Being brave isn't being fearless. Being brave is acting in the face of fear. And that's what we do with hope.
Right. 100%. No, that's very, very true. Okay, so that is very hopeful. I feel like I should just stop with that. But what I will say is my reason for hope is just a simple one, that Ford has announced plans to start rolling out a new family of affordable electric vehicles in 2027. It's going to feature a mid-size pickup truck with a target starting price of $30,000. They're going to be assembling them at a Louisville, Kentucky plant. And I guess my point in all of this is the transition to clean energy is going to happen. It's happening. Trump is going to delay it. He's going to make it much less robust than it would have been. But if you look at it from a global perspective, everything, and I read a lot about this every week because I'm very climate focused, and also because I have a good news newsletter and I'm always looking for those little tidbits. The tipping point has been passed. And so when I see Ford rolling out a new family of affordable pickup trucks that are electric, despite the fact that Trump is literally doing everything he can to stop it, and they're still doing it, it gives me a sense of hope. This clean energy transition is going to happen. Why? Because all other things aside, it's cheaper, and people are going to get their asses kicked on their power bills and their gas bills because of Trump's policies. Yeah. So they can do everything they can to try to stop it. It's happening. It's happening in the world. We're going to lag behind, but we're going to catch up eventually. But it's happening. Not as much as I want, but it is happening. So thank you, Ford, for, forging ahead, even though I know our government is basically trying to stop you. And just know that it's happening, guys. It is happening. So don't give up hope completely. Yeah, that's mine. What's yours? What is the Subway sandwich thrower? I'm dying to know.
You didn't see
I
this?
saw this. No,
oh my gosh.
How did I
Okay,
miss this? What is it?
So we're going to put the video up on our YouTube podcast so you all can see it. But this was a guy, I think he was probably inebriated, but maybe not, maybe just like really passionate in DC when the military and the FBI first came out, and he's screaming at an FBI guy on the street, and he's got a big Subway sandwich in his hand, and he throws the Subway sandwich at this FBI agent and then runs away. And it was an act of sandwich defiance that I could watch that video on a loop. And let me just say, I appreciate obviously the role that law enforcement plays in our communities. I'm not here to advocate throwing anything at law enforcement. As we said earlier in the show, they are being now put in a position where they're literally pulled off of their real law enforcement duties and being forced to do these bullshit power grabs in places where they're not needed. But, one of the biggest things that we can do, and this isn't hyperbole, this is a really important part of taking down a fascism and authoritarianism, is ridicule. Is doing stuff that's just silly, that's making strongmen and their wannabe strong actions look weak. And having a Subway sandwich thrown at this was, I would say chef's kiss. I don't know if you can evoke a chef when you're talking about a Subway sandwich, but whatever, sandwich maker's kiss for that move. And hopefully that guy didn't get in too much trouble. I think they did catch him and maybe arrested him, but
worry a little about the consequences for that guy. So maybe don't throw a Subway sandwich, but I love the vibe.
I'm not advocating for it, but yeah.
No, not at all. But it's, look, we're enraged. It's terrible. We're under assault. So, hopefully the next president pardons him, whatever happens.
Yeah. So on that note of I guess hope, let's move on to our amazing interview with the brilliant Dr. Sara Sadhwani. Dr. Sara Sadhwani is a politics professor at Pomona College and a non-resident fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation. Her analysis of politics and elections has been featured in the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, NPR, Bloomberg, Politico. The list goes on and on. Sara also importantly served as a California redistricting commissioner. Sara, thanks so much for joining. It's so great to see you.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Thanks for reaching out.
You had a great article in Politico, and obviously I want to talk about redistricting and the political ramifications. But first, I would just love to hear a little bit about your own journey into politics. Like, what led you to become a political scientist, and how did you first get started?
My journey into politics, I think, started when I was pretty young. I grew up, the child of immigrants in a rural area, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know why exactly. I don't know exactly what propelled me towards politics, but just a real sense of injustice in the world. So I was active in high school, certainly became very active in college, in various justice-related issues. And when I first came to Los Angeles in 2000, right at the end of 2005, people were marching the streets on immigration. And that if you remember that time period, it was when HR 4437 was passed, which was this really horrendous bill in the House that looked to demonize and criminalize the undocumented community. And right away, I had the opportunity to start working in the immigrant rights movement for CHIRLA, an organization that's been in the news quite a lot lately with all that's been going on. And I spent several years working within the movement in different organizations, but I always had this hankering for research, for data. I also was able to see the kind of data needs that we had in the social justice environment, and the ways in which academia wasn't necessarily responding to them. It was almost like, you'd have conversations with professors and it was like you're talking two different languages. So I went back to school at USC to do a PhD in political science, and really always had, in my mind, this idea that academia can provide something to the real world of politics. We can do that in an unbiased, nonpartisan way. That data ought to be analyzed and considered in the ways. We have to be real about what the facts on the ground are, but that it can play a really important role. And I'll say, in focusing on data, there's definitely been times when some of my former advocacy colleagues aren't always happy about the stories and narratives that I'm telling, but that's what the data says, right? So, I think we do have to be really honest about where we are. But that's kind of how I came into this work. Serving on the Redistricting Commission was a bit of a whim. I put in an application. I knew about it. I was in the advocacy world when the propositions were passed in 2008 and 2010. So I just threw in an application. I didn't really think too much about it. And then lo and behold, I get a call for an interview and they're rolling the lottery balls and my number gets chosen. So it's been quite a journey since then, for sure.
Well, I didn't know you worked for Churla. That's amazing. That was one of the first groups that I interfaced with when I got into this work in 2017, building for those midterms. Obviously they're a lot more in the news now, but they've been doing incredible work for a long time. Perfect segue into redistricting, because you did help draw the maps that we currently enjoy here in California. You were interviewed in Politico just a few days ago saying that you support a complete redrawing of the maps that you spent so much time and energy working on. I happen to very much agree with that. Can you talk about why it's important that we do this now?
Well, let me back up and talk a little bit about independent redistricting, perhaps, first.
Okay.
I still think independent redistricting is the best way to redistrict. And I think that we will be in a much better place when all 50 states are using the same set of rules to redistrict, particularly for Congress. We have a Congress that has been in a stalemate position for a very, very long time. We don't see big transformative legislation getting passed very often. And most certainly in modern times, we do not see a whole lot of bipartisanship. That era has long gone, which makes me incredibly sad. And to me, and I know many would disagree with me on this, but to me, an ideal would be to have a politics in America where we can have bipartisanship, where we can negotiate and talk like adults about our differences on various policy.
How it should be. No one's happy, right? That's what, negotiating is, where both sides are a little bit unhappy, but both sides get a little bit of what they want, and we find that we're moving forward.
Exactly. And that's what American democracy was originally built on, was this kind of concept that change happens slowly. And that's okay, so long as change is actually happening, and so long as we're still continuing on that arc of progress. We're not there now. Independent redistricting, I think, is a great alternative. It's not easy. My time on the commission, and technically speaking, I'm still on the commission. We serve a 10-year term. Was incredibly hard, but I worked with some of the finest Californians, I could have ever asked to work with, who truly, come from all different walks of life. But I think we all upheld this real belief in the work that we were doing and a fair process, and in California's democracy and in the U.S. democracy as well. We received nearly 40,000 pieces of community testimony that we used to draw the maps that we have in place today. And while there's plenty of naysayers out there who don't like certain elements of those maps, they are fair. They were community driven. They reflect the will of the people in many, many ways. And they're competitive, right? Which should be a good thing. It's unfortunate that we've gotten to this place, where we have a president who, is clearly, extending the use of executive force in ways we have not seen in American history. We have people being kidnapped off the streets by masked gunmen with no access to due process, courts and Congress, really, that simply capitulate to his every whim. This is not the kind of American government that the founders established or envisioned. And I think for me, that's my real concern. Of course, I always carry a deep concern and commitment to California's democracy. But at this point, I think that we have to do something about what's happening nationally. So if other states are going to fire the first shots and start this gerrymandering fiasco, and I do see it that way, it's not that I want to see the maps thrown out. I think they're good maps, but if this is the state of play right now, and if Democrats actually think that they can stand up to to what appears to be this movement towards authoritarianism in the United States, then so be it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we can't unilaterally disarm, and sadly, these are the tactics that Republicans are taking everywhere. And, I always want to stand on higher ground and say, well, this is how, these are our ethics, and this is what we believe in, and this is what democracy should be like. But, this is an authoritarian takeover, and it's very clear. And like you said, the overreach, the founders actually put more power in Congress than in the executive branch. And, the one thing that they really didn't anticipate is that Congress would be so willing to give away their power to the executive branch. They didn't think that people would come into a position of power and actually willingly cede that to someone else, and that's what we're seeing now. And so, as long as that's the case, we need to fight fire with fire. I agree 100%. Here in California, we have because of the work that you and many of us have done to, have good governance and democracy here in California, we actually have a little bit of a trickier process than they do in Texas in order to institute new maps. We're going to call a special election. I say we're going to. It's not official yet, but it's pretty much official. This is going to happen. Texas is going to pass their maps. We're going to move forward with this. So we'll call a special election. There'll be a ballot measure to do this. Do you think we can get the support that we need to actually pass it with the voting public here in California? And, what do you see as any kind of political ramifications of this move?
Anytime there's a special election, regardless of the issue, it's a challenge, and a campaign has to form. Money will need to be spent. I don't know where that money's going to come from, but voters have to be informed. I think in some ways the fact that this will move forward only with the approval of California voters is a pretty fascinating thing. But certainly there's going to need to be plenty of outreach, diverse outreach to diverse communities. As we know, that's what we've got here in California. My greatest hope is that the governor keeps to his word and makes this a narrow ballot measure, that makes this a one-time occurrence. Given these extraordinary circumstances, my hope is that he maintains the independent redistricting commission process for 2031, the next time that there should be redistricting that occurs. And certainly if those things are there, then I'm happy to support it.
I'm pretty bullish on it being passed. I think, all the things that you described. The money is a serious thing. Like, fundraising is difficult for everyone right now, and it will take a lot of money to get this out there, to educate people, and but I feel pretty good about us being able to pass it. I wonder, we were sliding a bit in the last election. We saw here in California, even, we had a lot of drop-off Dem voters. More conservative voters showed up than we had. You talk about data, you could get into some of that, but I just wonder if there's any political ramifications to this move that you see. Not that would stop me from supporting it, because we're like we said, we're in a fire and we need to, fight it right now. But, what do you think of any political ramifications?
Outside of this issue, or even before this issue kind of came up, I have said numerous times that the Democratic Party is going through an identity crisis. I think that's what we saw in the data in 2024. Here in Los Angeles, we saw that slippage, particularly in Latino and Asian American communities that the Democratic Party has for a very long time taken for granted. They don't bother to do efficient outreach to them. They don't take seriously the notion that door knockers and folks going out to do culturally competent education and outreach efforts matter. And, shame on the Democratic Party for that, quite frankly. And I think that that's a piece that Democrats still have to contend to. It doesn't go away, because of this issue. Hopefully, I think for Democrats, I would say, I'm guessing this is their hope, that this is an issue that they can get folks to rally around again. But despite that, Democrats need a message for the future, and one that resonates across the broad political spectrum, right? We have a two-party system. We can bemoan that all we want, but until we change our election type, that's not going away. And so instead, with these two parties, we often refer to them as big tent parties, right? That they have to stretch and include both the moderate factions of their party, but also the outer range, the far left or the far right for either party. And I think Democrats are struggling to do that, because we see it here in Los Angeles. I think LA in some ways is ground zero, where we see this real division between who would call themselves a moderate Democrat and who even calls themselves a progressive Democrat these days. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, because I know this is kind of a general term and topic for you, and where the folks who are kind of more identifying with DSA fall into that category, and can the Democratic Party actually do the outreach to bring all of those folks together? Can they do it for a special election like this? Probably, but I think it'll still come down to turnout. Can they do it for the 2026 elections? Can they do it for 2028? I mean, I have yet to really see a concise message or concise leadership within the Democratic Party. So I do think that they're in an identity crisis. I think this could maybe be a first rallying opportunity, but I think they have a lot more work ahead of them.
Well said. Yeah. I don't know the answers. Like, you threw it to me a little bit. I wish I did. A lot of people wish that I or anyone had like the answer to this question, but, I think this will, I hadn't thought of it this way until you just said that, but I think that this special election could be an interesting rallying cry across our democratic spectrum of this is our North Star. Like, we have issues that we're passionate about, and we have issues that sometimes divide us as Democrats, but we have the same North Star. We want the same things. And so are we willing to come together to work towards those in an imperfect world with imperfect messengers and imperfect, politicians, because that's actually the world that we live in. And finding that messenger, I think overall our democratic message is very popular with the bulk of, not just Democrats, but the voting electorate or the non-voting electorate, just people in general, what we stand for, what we push for, who we fight for. But it's the delivery system. And then, of course, like we live in a world where we need a charismatic leader, where we need a really strong messenger, and who is that person that's going to emerge? So, we can't just be fighting Trump, which is galvanizing and I think going to get us through this special election and probably the midterms too. But we need to be able to have a good message and a messenger about what we stand for and where we're going, and how we get there together. So, I think, we'll see who emerges.
I agree with that in many, many ways. And, this is not yet peer reviewed, so I shouldn't really talk about it. But, I'm working on this research project right now with a couple colleagues, in which we're looking at environmental justice framing and specifically targeting Asian Americans and Latinos. Most of my research tends to deal with Asian Americans and Latino voter behavior, and outside of all this other stuff that I do.
Yeah.
But
in your spare time.
Yeah, my spare. Well, that's technically that's my full-time job. But
right, okay.
Ultimately what we find is using climate justice framing has no effect. It's a null effect. Instead, using what we're beginning to refer to as upward mobility framing, which is one of the kind of things that comes out of the 2024 election, right? It's about the economy, and we got to be able to talk about it. But there's also something about inclusion, right? For communities of color from an immigrant background, I think we've often approached with this justice-oriented framing, but immigrant communities come to succeed, right? They come for a better life. They come to be included in American society. That's a hope and dream held by most, I would say. And I'm happy to debate this as well, because it's still something that we're kind of working on and working through, like the theory of. But really, I think that I'm bringing all of this up because you talked about how the message is clear. I'm not so sure that the message is clear. And I do think that that's one of the pieces where the values might be the same, but how we talk about it might need to change. And in order to reach that point, for the Democrats and to be able to bring all of those different factions of folks actually together and back to the ballot box in support of them, I think Republicans under Trump, love it or hate it, right, have done a better job of that, though it may be through scapegoating immigrants and such things. There's the message is more clear, and it lands with folks in a different way. And that's I think a big piece of what we were seeing in 2024 with all these shifts, particularly amongst Latino and Asian Americans, who, a lot of folks write them off, but they are important voting blocks, even Asian Americans, which are much, much smaller, but especially in a lot of the swing districts, swing states, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, over 100,000 Indian Americans registered to vote in Pennsylvania. These are communities that folks don't often think too much about and certainly aren't necessarily campaigning to.
Great points. Yeah. And every time I have this conversation, it really does come down to people's pocketbooks. You can nuance it, and I don't mean to be too general, because this is, your work is to be specific but across most demographics, when we talk about how do we reach out to this demographic or these people or this and everything, it's really the economy. It's really their pocketbooks. I mean, that's the central thing that we all share. And it reminds me, I'm sure you're familiar with Anach and Kursario's work and race class narrative and that, which I think is sounds like it's in line with what you're finding. So that's really fascinating to hear. So, we could go on and on about this because I love hearing about the data when it comes to messaging and communications and all that. But I will leave you with the last question that we ask all of our guests on this show. What is bringing you hope right now?
Oh boy, you should have told me that was going to be the question before.
And I should add, it's always met with a very pregnant pause and a deep sigh from our guests as well.
Yeah, it's been quite a year, 2025. Oof. I will always hold hope and faith in the human spirit, in the human kindness that I think most people carry with them. I don't think we see a whole lot of that, certainly when we turn on the news in this day and age. I didn't see a lot of it yesterday in my email inbox after that Politico interview. Got a lot of hate mail yesterday. Woo!
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. But one had even said, "Kill all the academics." I was like, "Oh, those are fighting words there, sir."
I'm sorry,
but
yeah.
This is American politics. But when you take all of that away and go talk to folks in communities, in your own community, I have kids and they're all in public schools and in activities, and you know what? On average, most folks are kind-hearted and want the best for themselves and for their families. And I think that is the piece that will always bring me hope, that at the end of the day, some hard work and good faith, I think, in one another can lead us to a brighter future.
I love that. Agreed. Find myself agreeing with you a lot, which is why I was so thrilled to have you on the show. Dr. Sara Sadhwani, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget that all the links for our actions are in our show notes, so don't just listen. Click on those links and take action. Please do subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you find us, Apple, YouTube, and share our show with your friends and family. Make sure they are taking action too. Let's build this Practivist community. If you are able to support our show on Substack, we'd really appreciate that, and you'll get an ad-free version of our show to boot. We will be back next week with some more Practivist pods. So until then, as we said, remember, hope is an action.